Welcome back to the Wolf of Queen Street podcast series. Welcome back to the podcast today. And today, Bayard McKenzie, a person that's built a successful business over the last 8 years, multi-million-dollar business, but during that time is also having to overcome one of the, I can't even imagine, hardest trauma and part as a parent, anything else, by losing your 3-year-old daughter to leukemia in 2018 and having one to come onto the show, talk about what you've gone through, what you've overcome, but also the inspiring side of it that you want to now share this message to the world and help other people understanding how to handle trauma, how to build resilience, and how to take it one day at a time to get yourself back into your life after such a situation or turmoil in your life that I can't imagine any parent would ever want to go through. But Bayard, thank you so much for coming on the show.
And thanks, Lawrence. Yeah, really stoked to be coming on board. Yeah, it's obviously, a topic very close to my heart and not something that I don't often talk about hugely in public. So this is definitely an interesting forum for me to kind of start to talk about it. And really, just explaining kind of my journey, what I went through and all of the kind of ups and downs that life throws at you. And this is, a prime example of that, I guess. Yeah.
It is so true. I know we caught off about a week before this or so, this recording. We caught off a cup of coffee just to touch base, and something that's sort of this almost impactful or emotional. We almost wanted to chat about it offline beforehand, just to go sure and how it would feel and how it would vibe on the show. And it was so true. We'll get into the story a little bit, but there's something that needs to be communicated more. Trauma and going through struggles and stuff like that. The people that go through it, like through my struggles myself, is sometimes we forget that there is a 1% out there in the world that also has gone through it or similar or is feeling that as well. And, by being able to communicate that, it allows that 1%. Now, 1% might not sound like a lot, but 1% on a million people is quite a large amount of people, right? That you can make a difference as well by sharing those stories.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I think from my perspective, certainly prior to this, it was like kind of, cruising through life on a bit of a cloud, and like everything's supposed to work like clockwork, right? That's kind of how I guess some people perceive the world and how you feel at times. And then to be thrown in 2018, kind of right at the cusp of when I was building my business. We were 3 years through. We were past that 3-year point. We were all having successes, and I had one of my best friends actually working in the business with me at the time, and we were away on holiday in Canada, and then, to get told the news that I got told really just turned my world upside down. So it was a huge kind of wake up for me. And, obviously through that, I'm in the position kind of where I'm at the moment and kind of how I perceive the world and things like that. Yeah.
So let's go through a little bit. I know it's a bit emotional stuff, but let's go a little bit through that story. So you obviously talk about 2018. You were over in Canada and stuff, and sort of like just from a high level point of view, like what was going on? Like how did you pick up that something might be wrong? Your daughter, wasn't she feeling good or anything?
Yeah, I mean obviously it's pretty hard to kind of to pull back into that space, but. We were, as I said, riding on a cloud. We were in Canada. We were there with our family on a ski trip actually in Whistler. My friend who was in my business at the time was with me with his family. So we were all there together. And Ella, who was my daughter, was in ski school at the time. And she started to show signs of bruising and things like that. So, but we thought really nothing of it at that point. We kind of naively attributed it to maybe some injuries at ski school. We obviously weren't privy to what she was doing there. But it started to raise a little bit of alarms in terms of her sickness. And so in Canada, we took her to the doctor. It was at that time, the doctor decided against going for bloods with her. And it's very hard to make assumptions, but my assumption kind of post what happened was he probably suspected what was going on, but didn't want us to go down the path of getting bloods in Canada for the simple reason that, if she was identified to have cancer at that time, we would have been stuck in Canada. So we would have had to have medical treatment there and away from our family and things like that. And then kind of that was a day or two out before flying out from Canada. So, and then we flew out from Canada, came back to New Zealand, and literally within 24 hours of being on the ground in New Zealand, I was working in my office at the time, got a call from my wife that Ella had been taken to Waitakere Hospital. And again, very naively, not thinking anything, I went down to hospital, looked after her in hospital while my wife went back with our then 1-year-old, Nina. And we were in the emergency area at the time. We were there from 5 o'clock, and then around kind of 10 o'clock, the doctor came out and broke the news, which, was pretty brutal. It's something, it's a moment that I'll never forget. And I have the doctor's look on his face vividly in my brain, and probably will for the rest of my life. It's the news that no parent wants to get, that she was diagnosed with obviously leukemia. And at that point, our world was completely turned upside down. Certainly, it's certainly something that takes a long time to, you go into, I guess, your fight or flight mode, don't you, at that point? And that's certainly where we went. My wife obviously came back to the hospital with our 1-year-old, and we were rushed down to Starship. I was on the ambulance and on the way to Starship, and now every time I drive that route, that's all I think about,
The anchor.
Yeah, which was down Henderson, down through the Henderson Way,
Lincoln Road.
through Takeaway Highway.
Yeah, Takeaway.
With the ambulance going, full noise, and down the motorway and into Starship. And God, that is a journey. I travel that journey quite a bit now, because my current daughter is goes to school in Titirangi. So, but it's a journey I don't like taking much. It brings back some pretty bad memories. Yeah.
I couldn't, I know from when I went through me and the doctor told me my diagnosis of, having a brain tumor, and I'm not been sure about next steps for me and where I would be in a couple of months' time. I had it more in the sense of, things are going to change now. I can't imagine, what you went through in that. And as being a parent myself and, 2 young kids, or I wish they were still young, but young tweens, as we call it, I just don't know where I would stand on that. And I mean, the emotional roller coaster you would have gone through from that is just, most of us likely wouldn't survive or come out of that or be able to know how to handle that. And I know through what we've spoken, you've handled it with utmost grace and inspiration and everything else. I know it hasn't been the easiest of rides, but I just take my hat off to you to, the inspiring side of it. Like, I don't even want to think about myself, because I'm really holding down my emotions at the moment. Just thinking about what you have gone through, and I know just because how hard that would have been. Yeah,
and I think, I think when I reflect on it, we as humans, we have an amazing way to deal with trauma. Yeah. I think if we can give ourselves those tools to deal with trauma, and you certainly in those early kind of traumatic stages go through a fight or flight kind of instinct, which I kind of mentioned, and you go into survival mode. Yep. Your survival for yourself and survival for your child, and that's certainly the space that I went into. So what that meant was basically everything on hold. Yep. You ring up everyone and life's on hold at that very moment, and there's something quite warm about that. I know it sounds strange, but there's something quite warm about, having no outside noise in your life and your only responsibility to care for your child. And, I went through that certainly over those months in 2018, spent, numerous nights on Starship Hospital wards, sleeping on the floor there at midnight, sometimes in A&E and stuff, and bringing her back and forward. And there were some really beautiful, intimate moments there where, I had to spend and wanted to spend time with my daughter. And, we forget about that stuff when we're busy out in life, and we forget about our kids, and we forget about our family and our friends, and we're distracted by, quite a lot of grey noise, right? But when you go through, a traumatic experience like I went through, you have no option but to, I guess, absorb what's important in life, and start to appreciate, those things in life. Certainly the ability for us to live is really important. Yep. And all of those support networks around us that came to my support during that time. Yeah.
It's so true. I think I spoke about it recently when I chatted to Lonnie Fogelberg. We spoke about, trying to find peace. Sometimes you just need calm. And like you said, it's a weird one. Like you said, in this moment, it was almost warm, and because all of that other stuff of the life had, moved away. So all of a sudden you started to feel this space where you were as a family, you were one, no outside noise, having all those moments.
That's right.
And it's something that we go through. I had very similar through the small circle of friends that I still keep dear to my heart. And one of the reasons why I've got a tattoo on my forearm around that is that there was that knit. So everything was right there, and I wasn't as accepting because I wasn't working through my my emotional state through my trauma myself as well. But yeah, there was those sort of moments of everything just come in and sit in and quiet, and it's amazing. It was amazing feeling in a weird way, like you said, through what you're once doing with you going through there. But how much time did you have with Ella from the diagnosis, unfortunately, to when you lost her?
Yeah, so obviously in those early stages, it was very touch and go with her. She had around a kg of leukemia in her at that point of diagnosis. And then she started to make, she was in a PICU, I think it is, or the intensive care unit for a little bit. And that was quite full on. But then she started to make some rapid kind of advancements, and the treatment was working really well. So while, to the audience, it might sound like it's fully quite scary and things like that, there were some really intimate and beautiful moments where she was, she was doing quite well. We had her at home. We were doing quite well as a family and things like that. And then it kind of started to go a little bit the other way towards more of the end of the year. It was in September that she was diagnosed palliative, and around that period. And I do remember that vividly. I had this thing, it was very weird. I had this thing throughout the whole thing. I kept going back to the Shawshank Redemption, and it's a great film, right? But there was a quote in the Shawshank Redemption that was always in the back of my mind of around get busy living or get busy dying. Yeah. And I always, had that in the back of my mind. I could choose to get busy living or get busy dying off this. In other words, I could allow this to define me, or I could use this to grow from and get busy living. So I chose that path, and that really helped in my journey. And it certainly helped me at that kind of palliative stage. That again was a very vivid day to me, and that's a day that's always going to remain in my memory. On the day that she was diagnosed palliative, I almost mentally lost it at that point. And I remember going back down to work to pick up my car after we were told, and Ella had gone home with her mum. And I just have a blank memory of kind of what happened at that period. And my friend who was working in my business at the time, a very good friend of mine, one of my best friends, I remember texting him, and then he kind of ran up the hill and found me wandering the streets. And he basically grabbed me, took me down to a pub, and I just sat there and I think cried for it would have been 48, maybe more hours over the course of 3 days, as that emotion kind of started to sink in, really. And didn't really, at that point, I didn't really know what was going on. I had, what I now know is all of those emotions that you get through that journey of, anger, fear, all of those things were coming at me in waves. I was fortunate at that time to be going through a little bit of therapy on it. So my therapist gave me quite strong direction on the day after I was advised of the palliative situation, and said, this is normal. These are a washing machine of emotions, and you're going to feel every single primitive emotion that you've got. Now, there's 5 of them, obviously, and they're all rolling around together. But you've got to allow yourself time to just sit there and absorb it and acknowledge it, and just know that they will eventually subside a little bit. And they did. And once I got through that period, I was given the strength to deal with what was coming, basically. So obviously, like any parent, we had hope, right? You never lose hope. It's a very strange thing. Even when you're told those things from doctors, you're like, you're just a doctor. At the moment, you don't control. Don't control the universe.
Go back to the Shawshank Redemption. Hope is a dangerous thing, right?
Yeah.
That's what he tells Andy. Hope is a dangerous thing.
You've just done a degree. You don't control the universe. That's kind of my. That was always the thinking.
Yeah.
But that's actually quite a beautiful thing, that hope, because it does give you that ability to deal with what's coming, and to also, to be close to the one that you love that you're potentially losing. So. And then, obviously in November she passed, and that changed my life forever. That moment. I mean, that in itself was traumatic. Putting aside all of the other traumas that we went through the year, and some of the things that we witnessed as families, that no one should have to witness, certainly on their child. That day of passing was something that's never gonna leave me, I guess. That was quite a traumatic 24 hours.
I can't imagine, like I said, as a parent, it would be worst day and all that sort of stuff. I don't really have words normally. I'm one to say much, but I'm just happy we can sit here and take her story and your story as part of it, and drive out to the community from that situation, because there's I know there's nothing I can say that will make you feel better about that day and that emotion, that anchor that you have on there, from what you're working through. But I know from off the back of that and sort of stuff that I want to get into at the moment is you've obviously gone through one of would be literally top 3 trauma any person would want to go through, and how you have and are now working through that from that time and on a daily basis. So some of the people can understand if they're going through similar examples of loss or potential loss or up and coming loss, of what is some of the stuff that they can take on from what you've learned and that you've gone through to handle their trauma, and also build up a potential resilience as well. Yeah,
I mean, I think the big thing for me, there's a couple of key points really, and the big thing for me when I was certainly going through it was, particularly in a child situation like that, is, I was told that some people grow up to be trees, others remain plants, but it doesn't mean that plant is any less valuable than the tree, and that was a really touching kind of comment that I picked up on through that Ella's life was full of adventure, and she had a beautiful life, and she traveled halfway across America. She snowboarded, skied in Whistler and things like that, and she had an amazing life, even though it was only short-lived. And her passing also gave people a lot of strength. She passed on quite significant gifts to a lot of people who still, use that passing to their advantages today. And I guess, the big thing for me was really just understanding that you can't control what you can't control. It works in mysterious ways, this world. It's not all meant to be, rosy and things. These things people are going to be confronted with events in their lives, be it, obviously mine, which is one of the top 3, as you mentioned, or something a little bit more minor, but you can't control that. So, but what you can control is, how you respond to that. And you can choose to go down the rabbit hole and allow it to impact you and your wider community. Or you can choose to kind of grow from it. And I can't turn back the time. I can't control what happened. that was fate. That was what happened. But I have since, used Ella's passing and certainly her spirit to grow. And I guess, some of the key things I think about is, being grounded in the moment, understanding all the beautiful aspects of life, be it the challenges that you're presented with, or, some of the more fun stuff, and turning yourself off from, what I like to call kind of grey noise, things that just are not relevant, We as a kind of society, we concentrate a lot on things that are irrelevant.
Yep.
And when you go through something like I've gone through, you start to really understand what's relevant and what's important in life. And if I'm really trying to simplify it, having gone through what I went through, the most important things that I identified in life is your family and your friends, your community, your close community. Because when you're at your most vulnerable and you're in a situation like I am and Ella was, they are really the ones that are going to band around you. They're the only ones that are relevant. And, they give you support through so many different mechanisms. And they give you that, that confidence to keep moving forward. And I think that was a really beautiful aspect of the journey, and something that people forget about, I think, they concentrate on their work or buying a fast car or, whatever they think is giving them a little bit of a buzz. But, what should be giving you a buzz is, going home and hugging your family, because you may lose them. You may end up in my situation, or, ringing your friends or being close to your friends. And all of those lessons have helped me translate all of that into my business and into my life, because I look at people now with empathy, and I look at situations much differently to, I guess, other people. Certainly, when I'm sitting in a meeting room, I look at the bigger picture as opposed to the grey noise and what society perceives to be important versus what I want and what I perceive to be important. And I take that into my office every day. And I pass that on to my staff, and I pass that on to kind of anyone that I touch. That, those are the aspects of life that are really important. And I'm unfortunate, but fortunate enough to see that. And I see it very clearly every day.
It is so true. Even for myself with mine and going through with my diagnosis and everything else, everything, it's almost that in your worst trauma, you realize what's important and what isn't. Some days I still forget about that and go, okay, is this actually important? Is this actually worth, losing my shit about when you think about it, the big picture? Unfortunately, I'm still very hot-headed. I've sort of, my condition and my side effects has brought me back to sort of the 17-year-old version, hot-headed version of myself. So it doesn't help me trying to be more centered with the universe, right?
Yeah.
But it's, like I speak to a lot of people, and like stress is, for example, one thing, like people overstressing about work and things, and things coming along, and it's like, hey, it's your day job. It's within your 40 hours. If it's not done today, it can be done tomorrow. And like, I'll sit down with people all the time, and they're like, it's the end of the world. I'm not going to get it finished today, and all the stuff. And I, not to be weird about it, I'll turn around to them and go, you know what stress is? Stress is someone tells you, a doctor diagnoses you that you might not be alive tomorrow.
Yeah,
that's stress.
Big time.
And then they're like, oh, and I'm like, then once you understand that you can put everything else, and not trying to oversay that their stress is not of any value in that, but it's just having reference to what is actually out there and important, and then being able to support them through going, it's okay. Can be stressed, but don't overstress for something that can be, left alone, parked over there, and then I can come back the next day and slowly work through it.
Yep.
Like a lot of people I see out there will over worry about something, but as soon as I come to you and I go, okay, Bayard, I can't get it to you today. I'm so worried. I'm so sorry about it. And you go, no, it's fine. Go do it. Give it to me tomorrow. And all of a sudden, that like the world just like goes off your shoulders, right?
Huge.
And it's that sort of openness that we need to talk through. And something I want to come back to find out from yourself, because I'm sure some people will be interested to know, is, do you at the moment, or do you have a regular sort of process for yourself to go through either on a daily or weekly basis, just to keep yourself more anchored or, to work through? Because I can imagine I still have, traumatic memories and stuff coming about my situation. I still have dreams and, mine wasn't anywhere as crazy as yours. And going through the process, I would like to know if there's anything you do to try to keep yourself level-headed and keep a lot of those, I don't want to say demons, but that darkness from consuming you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, it's a really good question. Grief doesn't give you an option, those that have suffered grief will know this, that you have no option but to be grounded and to give yourself space and to have a process that you deal with, because the way I look at it is, my cup is no longer completely empty. A portion of my cup is filled with Ella and the memories of her and the grief that's associated with that. So it was very obviously prevalent in those first few years. And, that was something that I had to learn to deal with or it would catch me out. But to answer your question, I definitely have a process. I have a beautiful painting of Ella in my office and a quiet little spot in my office that I sit and be with her. It's important, for me to be with her as much as I can. Otherwise she comes back and starts whacking me a little bit and says, "Hey, Dad, wake up. Hey, I'm still here." And if I don't do that, my cup overfills and then I can go down certainly into dark spaces. So I guess I've been forced into an option where I've had to create a process around how to deal with and manage grief, as well as all the other challenges that I deal with in life. The other big thing I do is I'm very vocal about it and communicate about it. This is obviously the first forum that I've done it in terms of this, but I have a wider network of friends that I can literally just call on and they'll be there like that. Amazing group of friends and family. So they're always right there. And surprising to most people, they like that. They want that, Your friends want that. Your friends want to hear what you're going through and to be there to support you. And so, I took that and I ran with it big time. And so every time I feel overwhelmed, I'll give them a call and they will, on various occasions, they've been halfway home and they'll just turn around and come to work and we'll sit there, play a bit of pool, have some beers, and we'll just talk about Ella or we'll talk about other things. Maybe I don't want to talk about it today or, and is obviously a very supporting family and supporting wife. And I think all of those things really help. But for people out there, it's knowing that there are people that want to listen and want to hear and want to help. And we as humans are, most of us are amazingly empathetic people. And we really want to, see the good in people and make sure people are okay. And I think we forget that. We forget that we feel alone and, we feel alone in our grief, but you're not alone. There's going to be people that really want to help you. Probably the other point to make on that is those people that want to help you, they don't know what to do, right? So just be mindful that there are people that deal with these types of traumas in different ways, but it doesn't mean they don't want to help you. You just need to perhaps reach out to some people as opposed to them reaching out to you. You need to make that leap. And it's hugely therapeutic. It's hugely therapeutic to be able to verbalize your pains, to verbalize your grief, and to, verbalize what you've been through. Some of my friends, say, "I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you talk about it." I was like, "Mate, this is therapeutic. Like, this is how I'm coping with my grief." And also, just being cognizant that life's never going to be the same. That once you go through an event like I've gone through or a loss of a family member or something like that, that'll always stay with you forever. And that is actually one of the beautiful things that we're gifted to as humans, that the memories of our past ancestors live on, and they'll always live with us. And, it's a lovely gift that we give back to them, right? I would be hating it if I sat here and said, I don't think about my daughter at all, right? So, yeah.
It's so inspiring, Bayard. You speak about that and all the rest. I've just got a quick note. You talk about, and I love it, that how you sit with your daughter, how you sit with Ella when you need to, and those sort of points. Is this something? Because I know some people will go, okay, I'd love to do that. But is this something you had to tell friends and family, like, hey, by the way, this? Because I can imagine people will want to try and do it similar, but they might feel. We always worry about judgment, right? We always worry about, I want to do this, which is because I'm in the 1% way outside because I've had this trauma. I want to do the one thing that's going to make me a little bit more grounded, but me doing it is totally different to everyone else.
Yeah.
Did you have to come out to your friends and go, hey, by the way, this is sort of what I'm going to be doing, and this is one of my key points, just so that they knew about it, and then everyone was supported afterwards? Or
yeah, 100%. Yep. Yeah, I mean, you have to, as I was saying earlier, just around, they don't understand, right, what you're going through. So you have to be very clear on that. And we had this thing, in 2018, I called it the shoulder tap. I think I mentioned that to you over coffee, right? And it was a process between my friends and I that if ever I called them up, I said, shoulder tap, guys.
Yep.
And that was the signal to go, right, he needs help. We're coming. And I could call on that whenever I wanted. And so, I set that boundary pretty clear to them that's the process. But, further to that, you do have to verbalize, that, I need some time out. I need some space. This is overwhelming me, or, I either need to talk to you about it or I need some space. And, I sometimes call my wife up and say, look, I'm not coming home tonight. I need to sit in the office with my daughter under the painting because it's the grief's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And she's fully respectful of that and fully understands that, and that's just part of me now, right? And I've acknowledged that's just part of my life now. But if I don't verbalize that to people, then how do they know to help, or how do they know to give me space? Or so it's up to me to certainly verbalize it. Yeah.
And if people. Some people are in the situation where they don't have the close-knit family or friends around them. Would you have experience of where could someone at the moment in the community we are, is there anyone that can call up? Is there people that can reach out to? Because I mean, some of us come from large supportive families, and some of us, unfortunately, due to our life, are sitting, one person, one other, one or two people, and they lose one person and they don't know where to go, or they don't know where to ask for help. Do we see that? Is there opportunities within New Zealand where we can call or get support or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. As part of my journey, I was also going through therapy. There's therapy available. There's also free places that you can contact as well. On the day Ella was diagnosed with palliative, I was sitting in the pub on the phone to my therapist. Right? It was. And, it was interesting. I don't think she anticipated, having to support me through Ella's diagnosis, because I was seeing her kind of prior to that as well. So that would have been a completely upside down twist for her therapy classes. But, she certainly helped me through those occasions, and I would call on her quite a bit, certainly for the professional advice, but also just to be an ear. She saw me in some of my worst states, right? So periods where, I might have been hungover because I just couldn't cope too much, or wanted to disappear to Australia at one point. I think I said to her, she goes, you're just going to run away from it, and it's just going to follow you. Yeah. So, stay here. I was almost halfway.
You're going to be fighting demons no matter where you're at. It's find you, right?
It's not going to go away.
Yeah.
So, so there's definitely avenues that you can take, and also just be mindful that there's other people that's not just friends and family that are there to support you. The wider community is there to support you as well.
So where to next? What's the Bayard story from here, right? So we're 2023. What's the next journey from you? I know you've told me what your path is, but let's tell the audience what you would like to do and get to next.
Look, I think for me, having gone through what I've gone through, I've been given a gift, as I said, and I would like to, pass that gift on to other people around some of those, around the lessons that I've learned through dealing with trauma and dealing with grief, and how I've bounced back from that. So on a personal side, that's something that I'm very passionate about. I'm also very passionate about giving back to those entities that supported us through the process, and will hopefully in the future be able to support them. So from Starship through to Child Cancer Foundation and things like that, and they were a rock for us, and so certainly want to give back to them if I can. And then on the business side, it's just about doing what makes me happy. I've gone away from that kind of pre-2018 to make heaps of money and, that's what's going to make me happy, to realizing that's not what's going to make me happy. What's going to make me happy is just doing cool stuff and things that I actually enjoy. And also just building further on my relationships with my friends and family and giving back to them after they supported me so much kind of through what I went through. I've just had a beautiful baby daughter, Matilda, and I look at her very differently now. I see Ella in her actually, which is beautiful. But my whole aspect on family has changed. I used to be kind of, although my wife will still say that I do this, I used to be out the door at 7, home at 6, and work was everything. But now I'm very different focus. I think about Matilda all the time, and I think about how's she going to grow up? This is going to be beautiful that we're going to spend so much time with her. And so
that's amazing. It truly is, and it's it's so inspiring to see. Like you said, when we started the show, you said through trauma we can go two ways. We can let it inspire us and let us make the change and take it, or it can take us down the dark hole. And a lot of us struggle. A lot of us go down that dark hole first, being able to then having to fight it back. I know I went that way with my situation, and I got to the two doors, door out or door to keep fighting. And thank goodness for my South African heritage and my upbringing of, you fight to get ahead, that I got through on the other side. And it's weird, like you said, me before my diagnosis, I was as well chasing the success and the money, and then the universe just says, fuck you. And then you turn around and go, well, do I really care about that, or do I really need that? And then you either find that, your true calling in life. And, this is what we are doing right now. So one of those key things for me is, my true calling, what I think can make a difference. And I'm hoping from this stepping stone, I'm hoping in 3-4 years time, Bayard, we can come back to the point and go, okay, cool. This was the stepping stone to start the path of you changing the world with this message, because it is so powerful. It is hard but powerful, but also inspiring, that can support so much in our community to say it is okay. Trauma is going to happen, but we can get through it.
Yeah, 100%. Life gives you the big middle finger sometimes, right? It's just things will sideswipe you and catch you out. And like one of the stories that I talked about with you over coffee, and people laugh at it and think it's quite amusing. But, at the point when Ella passed, it was a very coincidental moment of, and I just want to caveat this by saying I'm not a Republican, but it was a coincidental moment, and George Bush Sr. died on the same day. And what I didn't know about George Bush Sr., so I listened to George Bush Jr.'s eulogy at the time, is he lost his daughter to leukemia at 3 years old. Same situation. And he went on to be the president of the United States of America. And on his deathbed, he said to George Bush Jr., I can't wait to go see my daughter now and give her a hug. Excuse me, that's quite hard to say that. But what I took away from that was he went through his whole life with that grief and trauma. He went on to be, one of the highest ranked positions in the world, right? And not one day went by where he didn't think about his daughter and the loss, and he carried that all the way to his deathbed. And I thought that was a really beautiful thing. And when I found out about that, I automatically switched into that mode of thinking, I am going to use this to my advantage and strength, and I'm going to take her all the way through my life and build on that. And I know that I'll be successful in life, and I know that at the end of it, I will have spent every day thinking about her and honouring her. So I thought that was quite a timely, coincidental moment, really. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I don't think there can be anything more powerful about to say about that. At the moment, and as we sort of getting up to the end of it, it's been an emotional and hard sort of discussion we had, and all the rest, and truly inspiring. Is there anything for our audience? You've given so much, insights and amazing pieces. Is there anything you can leave our audience with as a last thought for today that might be struggling with something either currently or up and coming?
Yep. Obviously there's the Shawshank Redemption quote, get busy living or get busy dying.
Yeah.
That certainly helped me. But I think, one of the big things that I want to leave the audience is that you're not alone in your trauma. There's always support networks there for you. And, if you flip the coin around and treat the trauma in a positive sense as opposed to, I know that's very hard for people, but if you flip it around and treat it in a positive sense, certainly with grief, and you use that grief to honour those people that passed, and build on that and let them kind of guide you through life, then you can only go one way. You can only go upwards. It's a natural part of life to lose someone, but remember that they're always going to be there with you, and they will follow you through in a spiritual sense, and you need to think about kind of using that to your advantage, and certainly communicating it to the world.
Yeah, that's amazing and so beautiful, Bayard. Thank you so much for sharing that, and your message and your remembrance of Ella, and it's I'm lost for words. I don't usually do that, and because it's so hard. But it's I take my hat, like I said, I take my hat off of like how much you want to make a difference. And like I said, I'm hoping that in 3 or 4 years' time we can come back to this point and go, this was the stepping stone that started it all. Not that it is on my show or anything, but it's just that this could be the path that opens it up, and for you to go and inspire the world and take Ella to the world, right, and let them know about her and how she can make a difference, right?
100%, yeah. And that, that for me, that's another gift she's given me, the ability to help other people. That's just Ella. She was always like that. Yeah. So,
that's amazing. Thanks, Bayard. And to everyone else, as we sort of come up to the end of the show, as I always say, to me, I don't care about saying, like and subscribe and share all that sort of stuff. What I care about is if there's something important about today's episode. I think there was so much in today. If there's someone that is going through grief or handling trauma or anything like that at the moment that could take from the show, you don't have to go and say to them, hey, here's an episode about trauma. You might say, hey, come and jump on this, listen to Lawrence's crazy show. There's something interesting, just send it to them like that, because maybe they need just a little bit of guidance and see that they're not alone. They're not by themselves. We all handle trauma and that stuff differently, but we can actually help ourselves, and there is a community behind us. So I hope you can pick up something from today's show that will, change your life and spread the word of Ella and Bayard. And thank you for coming on and telling a story that more of the world can learn about her and her inspiration, and one day how the world will be changed because of her short journey that we got to the world. And thank you so much, and for coming here.
Thank you, Lawrence. Yeah, no, it's been I'm honoured to come on, and I think you're doing great things here, and so I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks so much, Bayard. It means a lot. And to everyone else, as always, thanks for coming over to the Wolf of Queen Street podcast, and hope to see you again.